What is up, anglers? We are back with California fishing news for January 15th, 2020. I know it's been a little bit since I did the last one. December is busy with the holidays and all that, and then got that sickness that's been going around last week. So last week I did a whole lot of nothing. But I'm back. That's the benefit of doing this. I don't have any deadlines. I don't have a boss. Just a passion project. So I do it when I want. But there's also hasn't been that much exciting fishing news happening. It is the middle of winter. Not a ton going on. But I still have a lot to talk about today just because it's been a little while since I've talked to you guys. So let's jump right into it. The first thing I want to do is just take a look at temp breaks. It's been a while. Take a look at the temperatures offshore. People are seeing 62, 63 degree water offshore. It's pretty much the warmest. And along the coast, I've seen reports even down to 58 degrees. Shout out to Dive Viz on Instagram. They've got a report where they send in reports of temperatures and visibilities from people diving, a lot of La Jolla and other areas. But yeah, it's getting a little cold along the coast, 58 degree water, but offshore 62. It looks all right. It also looks pretty clean out there. Let's look at the chloro. It's pretty clean water out there. A lot of times the colder water can be a little bit cleaner anyways, but it looks pretty good out there. So there hasn't been any of that holdover bluefin seen yet, but it could happen anytime. If you remember this time last year, early January, there was bluefin out in front of Long Beach, and a lot of that 40, 50 pound stuff people were catching. Not like a ton of it. It wasn't like the party boats were getting on big schools of it, but there was little schools and some private boaters got on bluefin. So you never know, that stuff could pop up at any time. The first main story I want to talk about this week is surf fishing. I've seen a lot of people posting surf fishing reports. I joined the group West Coast Surf Fishing on Facebook. It's a pretty active group. I'd recommend checking it out if you like to surf fish. And there's been a lot of perch caught this winter and some big ones. I want to show this one if you're watching it. If you're just listening to it, you can check it on YouTube. But this guy caught this 15 to 16 inch barred surf perch and about a 3-pounder. I surf fish every summer since I've been a kid. And as a kid, we used to see a lot more of these big perch, I felt like, in the summer. Maybe it's the warm water cycles we've been having and they've been pushed north. But for whatever reason, they're definitely here this winter. So it's a beautiful fish. Big barred surf perch are great to eat, fun to catch. They'll hit lures. You'll catch them on the Lucky Craft sometimes. And of course, all the other bait works too. Besides that, I've heard of a couple yellowfin croaker, a few corbina being seen, and even one caught yesterday, I believe. And occasional some halibut being posted. I haven't seen any nice legals caught from shore, but I've seen a bunch of shorts posted recently from shore. So if you put in the time with the Lucky Craft or the crocodile, you definitely got a shot at a halibut this time of year. As far as bait goes, there still are occasional sand crabs around. I was at the beach early January, and there was a little patch, not a big one, but a little like basketball-sized patch of sand crabs, and I went to dig them up, just check them out. And they were nice bait size, little half-inch size. They didn't have any eggs, but it's good to know that that option's there. I wasn't sure if you'd be able to find any during the winter. Besides that, you can always go with bloodworms, great bait, but they are expensive. Mussels, really good bait, but they're a pain to keep on the hook. Or the most popular option is pretty much the gulp sandworms, because they stay on the hook and they just catch fish. So surf fishing's been good. Go out there and get it, guys. With that cold water, a lot of guys do wear waders or even like wetsuit bottoms. If you're going to wear waders, make sure you get the belt, tighten it up. One guy did say he got knocked over for the first time in his waders recently, but he had his belt on, not much water got in. But yeah, if you're not wearing your belt, water gets in there, it can make you really heavy. It can be a safety hazard. So, but yeah, don't think just because it's winter doesn't mean you can't go to the beach and catch some fish. There are plenty of fish to be caught and some really, really nice perch being caught. Next, I want to talk about the yellowtail that have been around. It hasn't been a ton, but for the past month plus or so, there's been reports of these like run and gun yellowtail being caught from La Jolla down to Imperial Beach, Point Loma area. It's run and gun style fishing. Gonna look for birds. They're pushing up bait, and they're quick. They're up and then they're gone. But for the people in the right place at the right time, they've been able to score some really nice quality yellows. It's not wide open. I'm sure some days none are caught. Other days people see them a bunch. But from what I hear, there's plenty of bait around to keep them around. So you got a shot if you go looking. Just keep your eye out for birds, and it could be some yellowtail pushing up bait if you're in the San Diego area. Next, this is the map. Eric Landisfield writes article for BD pretty much every week with the fishing. And you can see with rockfish being closed now for January and February, we don't have a ton of options. Mainly, it's sculpin fishing, sand dab fishing, and bass fishing. But the bass fishing hasn't been great for any of the boats. They're getting like, some sand bass and a few legal calicos. The sculpin fishing varies. Sometimes they're only getting a few. Some boats have got over 100 some days, and sculpin are absolutely delicious. So we still have some options for the half-day boats or the LA half-day, three-quarter, full-day boats. But it's, with the rockfish being closed, it does limit you somewhat. Occasionally, when it's really good, the LA boats will run just the sand dab trips. And sand dabs have no limit. You can catch hundreds of them. Sometimes they'll report like a 2,000 catch of sand dabs. I mean, they're small, little, the size of a big hand, but they're delicious to eat. You can fry them whole. It's just some people are a little snobby. It's not worth the work, but LA's got the clientele that will go fish for them, and you can have some really good sand dab trips, catching 8, 10 at a time, and you can go home with 150 sand dabs. I know it sounds crazy, but there are no shortage of them. There's not something that's being overfished at all. I think in some areas we probably just have millions and millions of sand dabs off our coast. So that's an option. If you hear it, don't be surprised or don't let them go. Those little sand dabs can be delicious little treats. You also, from the San Diego boats, you have the option of doing a 3/4 day Mexican rockfish trips, like the new Seaforth runs them. They depart at 7:30 and they return at 3 p.m. They cost $105, including your Mexican license. But if you buy your yearly Mexican license, which I recommend everyone doing if you're going to fish in Mexico at all, it just saves you money in the long run. If you buy your own, you save $13. So buy your own online, then it costs you $92. It's a half day, whatever they call it, 3/4 day, but you can go down. They fish the 9 Mile Bank in Mexican waters, and you can get really good rockfish down there. So if you want to fill your freezer with some rockfish still, you got options to go make some tacos. Besides that, the only longer trips really running are the 1.5 days. They're pretty much only departing on Friday this time of year. It's the only time they can get enough people to run. But they're going down to Punta Colonet and getting really good rock fishing, some good lingcod, and some yellows. The yellows have been wide open. This last weekend, Pacific Queen got 25 yellows, but really nice grade. Gavin, on his report when he called in, said they did see a lot more fish this weekend than the weekend before. They just weren't in a super biting mood. But they caught 25. They lost a bunch. And then limits of really, really nice reds and rockfish. The guys that do these trips every year are saying it's some of the best rockfishing Colonet's seen the past few years, with big, big reds, nice lingcod. So yeah, those 1.5 days aren't cheap by any means, but you have an option if you're really itching to get out there, drink some beers on a boat, whatever. You got a shot. All the landings pretty much have some 1.5 day boats running those Colonet trips. Colonet was also the last spot that Bluefin were seen. Let's rewind a month or two. End of November, those bluefin and yellowfin were still around. We had the storms roll through. We weren't sure what would happen. After, in the middle of December, people went out and they found those bluefin again. Originally, they were still out in the Butterfly Bank, about 55 miles, and then they slowly went south. And the Mustang had a trip in December where they got full limits for 30 passengers and 6 crew of bluefin in the middle of December. So there was some really good fishing happening. And they kept sliding south. And the last I heard, they were 90, 100 miles south. Some of these trips, one of the trips in Colonet, when they got limits, they went offshore and took a look and they found some. They didn't get any to bite. But I wouldn't be surprised if a few bluefin show up in the counts sometime one of these weekends coming up, because it's pretty much how it's been the past few years, is sometime in January, February, March, the boat's going down to Colonet. We'll run into some offshore. And then as the water heats up, those things make their way north. So hopefully this year's the same. This bluefin cycle continues. And yeah, I just keep an eye out. One of these days it'll go up and one of the boats will get into school that bites, and everyone will get excited for tuna again. That's it for the party boat and the Southern California options. So briefly we'll talk about, last thing, there's some halibut around too, actually. I had to post or show this one. Alex Gall, who is Gall, Gall Artworks on Instagram. He makes these really cool ocean inspired metal art. But he went out just a day or two ago this weekend and got this 44-inch, 42.6 pound flatty. This thing's a beast. True rug, magic carpet, whatever you want to call it. So if you got a boat, halibut fishing can be frustrating and boring, but also be really rewarding. So you go out there, you don't have to burn a lot of gas. Find a spot, meter some bait, drop some bait down, and sit back. So there's definitely some big halibut to be caught out there too. You got some options. Moving on to the Central and NorCal. With the rockfish being closed up there, they really do not have too many options as far as fish goes. The crabbing, though, is still going on, and there's not a ton of boats going out. The weather hasn't allowed that. But the ones that are going out north of Monterey are pretty much still getting limits every time. On the 12th, out of Emeryville, 15 anglers got 150 dungeness. And before that, on the 11th, out of Emeryville, they got full limits for 13 anglers. The Monterey boats do the worst on the crabs. But they having some good sand dab trips, or they also, I mean, some of these they'll call in reports of just a bunch of mackerel, Pacific mackerel, other things like that. You don't have too many options for fish up there this time of year, but still plenty of crabs to be had. I know we talked about last year about how the commercial season kept being delayed, which allowed these recreational boats to keep doing well. And I do believe the commercial season is now open as of January 1st. It's surprisingly hard to find information about this. I spent some time doing some research, but as far as I know, it opened January 1st, so commercial season should be rocking and rolling now. But it doesn't seem to be affecting the counts too much. Boats are still getting full limits up north of Monterey, and Monterey is still getting, some, they scratch away. They get some, they're not getting full limits, but they're getting 2 or 3 a person, along with, some sand dabs, mackerel, other assorted little fish. Not a great time of year. March 1st, rockfish will open again, but, crabs are still delicious. You can get them on a half day, so you still got options if you're up that way and want to go fishing. Moving on to freshwater. Trout are biting pretty much all over the state. In San Diego County, all the stocks are in full swing. Guys are getting limits. And then up in northern central California, all the lakes, you got a shot at trout, pretty much any of the lakes that have them. There's also some decent steelhead fishing, it looks like, going on. All the northern rivers, the Eel, the Trinity, Klamath, Sacramento, all that sort of thing. So if that's your deal, you can go out for some steelhead as well. I do want to talk about a green bass, largemouth. I know I don't talk about it much here because it's a... Bass fishermen can be weird, and I'm not trying to blow up any spots or piss anybody off. But from the reports I'm getting, fish are pretty much deep, especially at our local lakes. I want to talk about lakes turning over because I just kind of learned about it. I thought it was interesting. I thought you guys might too. But basically what happens is in the summer, obviously the surface is warmer. The surface of the water is warmer, and the bottom of the lake is colder. And then as fall happens, is basically that water on the surface slowly cools and cools and cools first because it's the one that's exposed to the atmosphere and all that. And then finally it gets below the temperature of the water that's on the bottom, and that causes it to sink because it's denser. The water on the bottom comes up, and what this does is it causes the lake to turn over. And this is what really makes the fish go deep, because when this happens, the water deeper is actually warmer than the surface water. So before the lakes turn over, even if it's feeling cold, a lot of times you'll still find plenty of bass shallow. But now I've heard reports of guys fishing 20 to 50 feet deep for largemouth. So it's time to go fish deep. You kind of need a fish finder for this sort of deal. But guys are still out there and still catching fish. And that isn't to say there aren't any fish shallow. There definitely are some fish shallow too. It's just a general. Like whenever we talk about it, it's not like 100% of the fish are all going shallow. There's some that are probably residents that are year-round shallow, especially in San Diego, where it's not like it's going to freeze over on top. But this turnover does happen. It does kind of cause the bait to go down, the fish follow it, and all that. So it's a good time to fish spoons. Guys fish like Castmasters, ice jigs, stuff I've never really fished for bass deep. I've got one deep spoon bass in my life. That was up at Berryessa. But it can still be fun. You still got options if you want to go out there. So go meet around on your fish finder and drop some spoons. I also want to mention Working Class Zero. If you don't know Mike Gilbert, he's the founder, owner of Working Class Zero. He makes baits, some gear and merch as well. But he released the 9-inch Battle Shad. Apparently this thing's cool because he put it in a head case harness. If you've ever fished some of his baits, I've just fished the Citizens, only ones I have. But they're not cheap, and they did kind of get destroyed relatively easily. But he put this new head case harness in it. He swears it'll make the baits last 10 times as long, and it's kind of a change to the game. I don't know. They're $75, but there's still some available on his website. I'm sure they won't be available for too long because he doesn't release that many baits at a time, and they pretty much always sell out. But yeah, definitely not cheap for one bait. But, the big swim bait game isn't cheap. If you're in the big swim bait game, you probably already know this. But I've been watching. He's got a sweet YouTube channel, and he's got a bunch of cast to catches of all these giant 10-pound plus. He's most well known for having a catch-to-catch of the 17.4 pound largemouth. So go check out his YouTube channel. I like to, just throw him a little support because I like what he's doing. They're made in America, small family-owned business, all that jazz. And I'm sure these baits will get crushed. I'm personally not buying one because I still have a couple Citizens I've never caught a bass on. I've still got a Hud I've never caught a bass on. I got a Savage here I've never got. I don't throw swim baits enough. It's something I want to do, but yeah, go check it out. And if you're into swim baits or you want to support him, these are beautiful baits, hand painted, and yeah, some available there. They will not be available for long. And once they're gone, it's not like you can go back and get them. After this, he's going to do the 7.5 and the 6-inch battle shads. So it's like once the 9 inches are gone, that's pretty much it for it, until he gets around to making one other batch, which could be months or even a year, or who knows with him. So if you're interested at all, go check it out, workingclasszero.store. Google Working Class Zero, check out his YouTube and all that. Next for events, I just want to mention the next Alpine Beer Fishing Team meeting is February 2nd at 9 a.m. up in Alpine at the beer pub. They have a great raffle. I think Alpine makes some of the best beer around, and they're also family friendly. Don't think that just because it's a brew pub you can't bring the kids. Family friendly events, and it seems like a really cool community. The guy who runs it's a good guy. I've got friends that work at Alpine. I love their beer. I love fishing. It's kind of cool how they've embraced it. And the fishing team is not like pro staffers. It's just if you have a Alpine beer or any Alpine hat gear and you catch a fish, take a photo of it, post it on Instagram, he reposts them, and the one who wins every month gets a $100 gift card. So it's a pretty sweet deal. I like supporting them. Check them out. And that meeting is February 2nd if you want to go to there. That's it for the fishing news. What's next for California fishing news? I might keep these bi-weekly going forward until pretty much March 1st when rockfish season opens up again. There's just not that much happening. That being said, if boats wreck the Bluefin this weekend or something, then I probably will do another one. But yeah, I don't think they're going to be necessarily every week during this slow time of year. And I am also working on getting some more interviews done. There's specifically a couple scientists or biologists that I really want to interview, and some other fishermen as well. So if you have any comments, check us out on Instagram at California Fishing News. Email californiafishingnews@gmail.com. Tell your friends. It's pretty cool. I mean, I'm not getting a ton of downloads here or anything, but every time I release one, it gets a few more downloads than time before. So I am slowly and steadily growing. Thank you to the few positive comments I've got on YouTube. It's pretty cool. I'm glad some people are enjoying this. That's it, guys. Go get them, tight lines. And if you got anything negative to say, shut up and fish.